So, welcome to Vancouver Pedagogical Society, new members and also old members. So anyone's actually interested in joining VanPS, that's a short way of saying Vancouver Pedagogical Society. The membership for the whole year is $30. And as long as you give your name, address, and also email, because let's see, we also have our society meetings on Zoom. So if you feel not able to actually make our meetings because of either you're not feeling well, or maybe it's the car problems or transportation, you can always watch it on Zoom. So we always send our Zoom invite to all the members. We also have non-members, and if they're interested but not too sure what the Vancouver Pedagogical Society is, you can always watch them on Zoom and decide whether you want to join our society or not. So we got that whole freedom to actually do. So we got a little bit of housekeeping. So this is our AGM, annual general meeting. And so what we do here is we elect our executive. And John, are you recording right now?
Yes.
Okay. First elected officials is what we have is for the chair is Perry Poon, that's me. We also have John Van in the back, he's vice chair. And so John just wave to let everyone know here. Also we have Sahar Paxad, and she's not here, but she's on Zoom. Yeah, she's on Zoom. And so she is actually our web maintenance designer. Okay, we also have Laura Terms. And also she's our treasurer for VanPS, and she's also watching it on Zoom, so she's not present physically here. And we also have Brendan Martins, he is one of the directors, and anyone can actually become a director if they want to. And also we have Reese Martin, she's our secretary. So she would handle some of the records and handling. So for the first thing that we have to actually do, does anyone is interested in the position of chair? Okay, so going once, going twice, going three times. Okay, so Perry Poon, myself, remain as chair for this year for 2023. Okay, is anyone interested in the position for vice chair? Okay, going once, going twice, going three times. Okay, so John Pham remains as the vice chair of the VanPS. Reese Martins, who's the secretary. Is anyone interested in doing the position of secretary? Okay, going once, going twice, going three times. Okay, so Reese Martins remains as secretary. Okay, Laura Terms, now let's see, she's our treasurer. Is anyone interested in the position of treasurer? Going once, going twice, going three times. Okay, Laura remains treasurer for 2023. Sahar Patsad, is anyone interested in web design? Going once, going twice, going three times. Okay, so Sahar remains as web designer. And is anyone interested also in becoming a director? Okay, remember the past director was Brendan. And so is anyone interested in becoming a director? Going once, going twice, going three times. Okay, so Brendan remains as director. And I actually like to nominate Leo Pham as one of the directors of the VanPS. And does anyone oppose my nomination?
Can you explain what the director does?
Oh, the director does actually what the director would be doing is attending some of the VCPAs and also adding a little bit extra help to the VanPS society. And doing so like almost like odd jobs, or just actually, finding out what the society does. So you can actually get your hands-on experience, and you can also put yourself as a director on your resume. So that's the one thing that is kind of important. That's really the reason why you can't do it. So generally directors actually do odd jobs. But one of the things is myself and John, we always attend the BC British Columbia Paleontological Alliance meetings. that are either their annual general meetings or meetings, and we do it by Zoom. So we actually have more deeper connections with the BCPA and what they're actually doing. Okay, is anyone opposed? Let's see, Leo being a director. Going once, going twice, 3 times. Okay, thank you very much. Okay,
Perry,
so,
can you guys hear me or no? Hello?
as myself as director, and also Larice. Oh, did I forget anyone?
Can you
Larice,
guys,
oh, yes, okay, sorry, Larice.
can you guys
Larice
hear?
Martins was secretary. Is anyone interested in that position?
No, sorry, Perry. No, hello, can you hear us?
Maurice one has her hand up.
Oh, Larice.
Yeah, can you hear me or no? Hello?
Maurice,
Yeah, can you guys hear me or do I have to type it in?
No, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. No, I'll still be secretary. I was just putting my hand up because I think Gia was gonna ask about being a director as well.
yeah, remember you asked Jay?
Okay, is Jen interested in becoming a director? Okay, I'd like to.
She's gonna unmute.
Yeah, I asked what the director job entails, but you explained it. Yeah, I don't mind being a director.
Okay.
I think, yeah, I think that you should be a part of it as well. Because
okay,
you do a lot for us too, and you go to all the shows and stuff, so that would be good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'd like to actually nominate Gia Chow as, let's say, one of the directors for the VanPS. Okay, does anyone want to decline? Okay, going once, going twice, going 3 times. Okay, so Gia Chow is now a director for the VanPS Society. Okay, was there anyone else I missed? Okay, so those are our society executives for 2023. Oh, thank you very much for helping out. Okay, so we'll go into our presentation about, let's see, the fossils on the west side of Harrison Lake, and we need actually to stress that when I do this presentation, because it's only the west side we're doing the presentation. Okay.
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 Okay, I'm gonna share the screen now.
Okay, we're sharing screen. Okay. If this works. Okay, west side of Harrison Lake and the fossils, and fossil academies and the fossils, and I also like to stress is this is sort of like a photographic record of my times on the west side of Harrison Lakes and some of the fossils you'll see, and some of the ventures we actually have here, and especially want to emphasize on changes. So these are the types of fossils you will see on the west side of Harrison Lake. They're very typical, and I'd like to actually stress afterwards is after the presentation, we actually have fossils here, also latex molds done by Rod Bartlett, and also other people that bought fossils today that you can actually look at some of these actual specimens. Next slide. Okay, let's go back one more.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
I don't know why it's, okay, there.
Okay, this just shows you the route to actually the Harrison Lake. So you just drive and we reach Highway 7 and go to Harrison Mills. And from then on, you go on to a laundry road, and you actually will find some of these sites on the west side of Harrison Lake. Okay, next, okay, thank you.
All right.
Good. Okay, and so one of the things that you see on Harrison is the Sasquatch Inn. And so this is from 1980, 98, and 99. This is how the Harrison Sasquatch Inn looked like. So we had Bigfoot Cafe and Sasquatch Inn pub, and it was pretty rustic looking on the outside. And so it just looks like something from the 1960s. Next slide. Okay, this is how it looks now, much more welcoming. and actually much more pleasant looking. And then we have actually the Sasquatch in a new logo for them. Okay, next. And so that was our general meeting place where every time we actually go for the Harrison site all the time. One thing I should mention about the west side of Harrison Lake, it's what I've heard, it is a hot spot for Bigfoot or the Sasquatch. Okay, I've been there several times and I've actually never seen any large hairy humanoid walking around. Okay, I've actually seen some hairy person on the road, but that's the closest that I got. And so the whole place, like Harrison Lake, is really sort of like they have a Sasquatch theme. So these are variety types of Sasquatch things I have just around the Sasquatch. It's all pretty much Sasquatch Palooza there. They use the emblem and also even have in the pub Sasquatch. Next. And here we have Brendan actually standing right beside Mr. Sasquatch. And so that actually shows you how much people really enjoy this figurative, this mythical type of creature that actually exists there. Next. So I want to look at seriousness. Okay, these are the locations of some of the fossil sites on the west side of Harrison Lake, and two of the major ones are marked in arrows here, which I call Hale Creek 4. Okay, and also Broken Back Hill number 5, which has several, 1 or 2 that are actually there to actually stop off and look at these fossils. And you'll actually see the blood of dots and stippling and things. That refers to the geological rocks that actually are present in the area. Okay, next.
Whose map is that?
So what did that map come from?
Yeah.
Okay, it's not from the one that's on Harrison Lake. That was my longer. So that was actually from the Victoria Symposium. And so I did have, one thing I want to do is actually quote and actually say where I got these maps from, because I think some of these geological journals, you can find them online if you know what you're looking for. Okay, this is the stratigraphy west side of Harrison Lake, and so the arrow points to the places where you find fossils, so the peninsula formation. Okay, that would be the Broken Back Hill, number 5 fossil site, and then we have Mysterious Creek formation. Okay, and that is the Hale Creek, number 4. And you can actually see them. So Lower Cretaceous for the peninsula formation, and also sort of roughly Upper Jurassic for the Mysterious Creek formations. Okay. Next. And so this is actually one of my first fossil trips in 1998 at Hale Creek. And there's a picture of Rene Savigny. And he was one of the, not quite a founding member, but a very active member. And he actually retired quite early in age as a school teacher in high school, and he taught science. And for him, he was a really great fossil collector and he had a huge amount of fossils. When he passed away in 2005, he actually contributed some of these fossils and donated them. Actually, his wife donated them to the Royal BC Museum in Victoria. Okay. So this is actually the here on this side. This is the cliff site near Hale Creek, and it's just right on the logging road. And here's another side of that thing. But so you actually see a lot of greenery trees actually grown here. There's this young woman, Mia, and she actually has this rock with the Cadoceras. Those are the names of the Ammites. That's their species names that are there. And there's a variety of types of Cadoceras that are there. And so that's one that's there right now. And again, this area, Mysterious Creek Formation, is mid-Jurassic. That's roughly the time period. It's about 165 million years ago. Okay, next. Okay, now we go to Broken Back Hill. And so this actually, as you're approaching the Broken Back Hill right over here, and actually this is it right here. Okay.
Isn't that the lower cretaceous part of it?
Yeah, this is some of the locations. Okay, no, okay, that's right, it's really early. Okay, we just go over. Okay, so it's 135 for roughly about 90 million years ago. And so we actually drive close to Broken Back Hill, and then come across this site right over here, and we're looking at this belemnite conquina, and also lots of bucchii that are here. So they're referred as clams for bivalves, and they're all about roughly lower Cretaceous. Okay, next. Okay, we just talked about a little bit about ammonites, Cardosterus, and so their fragments are extremely common there. Every rock that you see, they're fragmentary, and sometimes you get sort of like the mold of the ammonites, but lots of them tend to be fragmented. I mean, this one that just half there, that's actually pretty good, but most you get little pieces of all. So these ones actually are ones that I've collected down here, and they're more complete. And you can actually see some examples over here, much more mature specimens of Cardosterus. And these tend to be quite rare. And so you're sort of almost like lucked out in finding some of these. I mean, I took a group of people and they asked me, well, what are we looking for in Hale Creek? And so I just grabbed a random rock and said, okay, this is the rock they're supposed to look at. And I just turned it over and I said, oh, there's a whole Cardosterus that was actually on there. And they said, oh, you put it there, Terry. And so it was just luck of the draw. I actually like to say when I go fossil collecting, I'll find something that's roughly about 30% and 70% is all just pretty much not great stuff. Okay, next. Okay, a little bit about Cardosterus, like who's the relatives of Cardosterus? They're the Ammonites, and Ammonites are now extinct, but they belong to a group called the cephalopods. And these are some of the cephalopods that exist today. Okay, some of them, giant octopus, okay, that's the one animal that has 8 arms, and these are all invertebrates. That means they don't have a backbone. And here's an example of reef squids. Okay, so they actually have 8 arms and 2 tentacles here. And same with the cuttlefish, and then also 8 arms and 2 tentacles. Okay, and these are the major groups of cephalopods that exist today. And also we can also include the chambered nautilus, and this is actually a picture. I'm afraid that it was taken in sort of a dark tank, and this is actually live nautilus that was took pictures of at Waikiki Aquarium in Hawaii. And so I was actually quite taken by seeing them alive. They didn't do too much other than I came back and seeing one on one side and moved on to the other side, and I just noticed it had moved, but I didn't get to see them move. But they're just sitting in the tank, floating around. There's nothing for them to eat in the tank, and that's because they don't want to put in anything plastic or anything like that, like fake coral, because they'll start to munch on that. And I think that's why this tank looks very barren. And I've seen that thing happen with sea turtles, even though they're also in the tank. Sometimes they don't put items in there because you don't have them eating plastic coral. So that's why I call them empty. And also these animals live quite deep in the oceans, so they're not found around here. So some are found in sort of the tropical mid-Pacific regions, and they live quite deep, so way below 200 meters in depth. Okay, sometimes they do come into shallow waters, but they spend most of the time during the day down in the depths during the daytime. Okay, next. Okay, there's some examples of ammonites that have been found in BC. So a lot of the ammonites actually see they're more like sort of the coiled snail shells here, like this one right over here. You get quite large ones here. This one is actually what we call the Fernie giant. There's actually a mold that was actually done by Ron Bartlett here, and so he did that one for the GSC. And there was also another one here, and this is actually from Qualicum Beach there, Graham Beard actually has a museum there. You can actually see that on display. Unfortunately, the one at the GSC is not on display. Okay, it's actually in the basement there. Okay, this one actually is from a specimen that's on display, and it was actually done by the Vancouver Island Paleontological Society. And so they actually loaned specimens there to the Pacific Museum of the Earth on loan to actually have display on there. So this place is where you actually see real ammonites here, and they're not cast or anything. And then you have heteromorphic ammonites. These are the ones that sort of almost look like corkscrew. They're almost like tightly wound chamber but been uncoiled. There's even some that look like paper clips. And so they come from a variety of shapes and also a variety of sizes, some of them big. And so some of the ammonite get much more larger than the ferny jack that we have here. Next. Yes.
You get bigger than that?
Yeah, I've actually heard like the tires on some of the big dump trucks that they actually use to do strip mining, that size. So they get even larger than that. That's what I heard. I haven't seen one specimen like that. Yeah. Here's always some of the models from and also illustrations showing this is how do ammonite look. And so here's one that was done by Rob Bartlett here. And this is actually one that actually you can see at the Field Survey of Canada up in the library. It is on display. And so I've done this actually at North Library. It doesn't cost anything. And yeah, and one of those fossils ammonites that you can actually see and some very interactive things that actually they have there. This one here, the bottom here, this is from the Vancouver Island in the Courtney Museum on display there, and they have a beautiful diagram that shows you all the ammonites and also what the seas would have looked like back then. These two are Ray Troll's illustrations right here. You'll notice that he has been pictured of 8 arms and 2 tentacles. And now I talked to Rod about his model here, and so he hasn't found any evidence of them having any tentacles. So he strongly believes they actually have 8 arms. And so, but the other thing you also do is some toy stores, you can actually buy wonderful models of ammonites. Like this one right here, that's actually also on display at the Geological Survey of Canada. I bought myself one, and actually, unfortunately, it had 2 tentacles, which I thought was inaccurate. So what I did is just cut the tentacles off to make it accurate. Yeah, and so I've done that. So these are all sort of examples of people who've pictured what the ammonites are. And see, this is actually Ray Troll's here shows you uncoiled heteromorphic ammonites existing in the mid-water. We really don't know if they lived on mid-water. Some people have suggested maybe they're living on the bottom. So hopefully it's we find more evidence of exactly what their lifestyle was like. Next. Okay, based on our lifestyles and habits of the ammonites that are now extinct, and they became extinct about 65 million years ago, at the same time period when the asteroid hit Earth and killed off the dinosaurs, marine reptiles, and also flying reptiles, and also a lot of other things that actually existed during the Mesozoic. So here we have the chambered nautilus, and so they actually will live in a shell. And one of the very few cephalopods that actually live in a shell too. And so you'll see here, lower over here, the shell of nautilus, and you'll see a lot of these in shell sharks. And so if you took an X-ray of a nautilus shell or cut it in half, you actually see it has something called a spuntum. And so this is the way the animal can control its buoyancy. So it's almost like a miniature submarine. They can actually add a little bit of gas or fluid and adjust their buoyancy, because remember, they're going up into the shallows at night, and that's descending down to the depth during the daytime. And so they remain there, so they have to adjust themselves almost like a submarine. So their shell is designed to actually handle the building pressures as they go either down deeper into the water, and also changing pressures as they go slightly up. So they're actually able to do that. Okay, next. Okay, that shows you the Jurassic world and how colossus. And so you see a lot of the continents. The Atlantic Ocean is beginning to actually split up. The United continent was known as Pangea, is now splitting, starting to split. So South America and Africa are splitting apart, and also Europe and also North America start to split up, forming the Atlantic Ocean. So this is how it looked there. And so BC would have been somewhere around this area, and it didn't exist at the time. It's slowly actually building. So it may have been what people think is groups of islands that are actually out there in the BC coast. And so Jurassic period times where we're standing right now would have been all ocean or sound seas. Okay, next. And so the other animals that you find out at the next Bukiai site is Cadoceras, also known as the clams too. And there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. I would say on our field trips, if you can't find a Cadoceras and ammonite, you're guaranteed to find the seeds of clams, the Bukiai. And so there's always these guys there. I kind of like it because someone who hasn't found anything, at least they can find a Bukiai. And so they probably were some types of filter feeding clams. So they're taking water, filtering all the food particles, just like the oyster here, Pacific oyster that's still around today. And so they must have been sort of like in groups and on blocks. And eventually some of these would die and form these long layers of these Bukiais that I actually see today. Okay, next. Yeah, so this is the world of the Bukiai. And so looking at something about Lower Cretaceous. And at that time period, you did see that North America split off from Europe, Atlantic Ocean, sort of early Atlantic Ocean has formed as South America splits from Africa. And then let's see, in the middle here, that splits way down is the Western Inland Seaway, which actually covered all the way from Alaska down to the Gulf of Mexico, the Shallow Sea. And so that's what I've actually split down across in bits of Alberta and also Saskatchewan there. And meanwhile, here on our west coast, where Beakley is, there's pretty much shallow seas around here. Okay. Next. So this is examples from Grain Bear and Woodson books about Vancouver Island fossils. So this shows you what would have been there in the shallow seas. And so this is actually sort of like the seas would have looked around Vancouver Island. So you have cuttlefish, marine reptiles, sharks, and also ammonites. And so on the bottom would be shellfish, and these things very similar to some of the clams that exist as fossils there. And also includes the heteromorphic ammonites and also lobsters that actually find as fossils there on Vancouver Island. Okay, next. And there's different ones. Okay, we also have the lasmosaur, another type of marine reptile, not a dinosaur. So they also existed on Vancouver Island, and so you have a chance to actually go to the Courtney Museum. It is worth going there to actually see what type of marine life exists in the ancient oceans there. And again, we have the ammonites here, and also the presence of sharks, and also some plants that actually live on the ocean floor. Next. Okay, we also find the belemnites that are there, and so they tend to be sort of almost these cigar-shaped type of invertebrates. And then you see them there, they're all cigar shaped, and you have to see out the ruler there, and some of them are actually quite small, and other ones that they tend to be a little bit larger, but most of them tend to be quite small. Okay, next. Okay, and they have actually found fossils, belemnites, and the one that's actually right over here, this is probably a very accurate model because they actually have the entire belemnite preserved in the rocks, including let's see its ink sac too. And so they already know that they had 8 arms, there were no tentacles, and they couldn't find any on there. And instead of suckers like today's squids, some of the today's squids do have hooks, but the belemnites all had hooks on all their 8 arms. So they didn't have these suckers, they all had hooks. So they must have had like a similar type of lifestyle like what squids have today. And so here's another model right here down below here, belemnite, and here's the reef squid here. They were very similar in terms of lifestyles. So they do believe these ones were probably living in the mid-water, right above the bottoms, and they also provide food for a lot of marine reptiles and large fish. Okay, next. Yeah, in 2003 and 2004, to the Hale Creek site, I actually came across these mineral claims. And so these mineral claims were actually posted, and actually they actually claimed the fossils as a mineral claim. So at that time, fossils were listed as minerals. Now today, they're listed as heritage. And so they're now becoming very important for the province of BC because now part of the heritage. But this has existed for a few years. I talked with some of the people, the VanPS group, and they were actually saying, well, the Bukiai site also had the same claim, and by the same person, they believe, and this person decided to make a mineral claim. Most likely wanted to exploit the fossils that were there and make some type of market, which we think they would. That's what we thought this person was doing. And one of the people actually, my VanPS, suggested that it was very kind of not the best thing to do at the Hale Creek site because amulets, there are very few to get complete. That's probably why he wanted them. So we just said, well, just good luck on that type of business. And this existed for about a year or two, and then it sort of like disappeared. The whole post were all gone. Okay, next slide. And so now we go to 2017. And so this is how the site looks at Hale Creek. You notice it's all overgrown where all the cliffs are now. And so it's really not the easiest thing to actually access to the site. But this area here was all full of trees. Now it's completely clear cut. You can actually climb from here up to the top and way up to this hill. And here's Brendan actually give you scale of how big it is. And this area here used to be a pretty good place where you actually find some cadasters. It's now heavily overgrown, and so it's slowly being exposed again. And so people are collecting. One thing I noticed is there were forest fires the year before, and this is actually some evidence of some of the fires that happened there. And then you come along, trees along the edges in the back, in front of where Brendan is standing, and they're all scorched trees. And so that's where there was sort of a big, massive forest fire that actually happened there. Okay, next. Yeah, and this is actually underneath all this brush and everything, and you have to go underneath and dodge some of these logs that are actually hidden there. And so this is some of the ammonites that Brendan had collected along the cliff over here. And so basically you can actually chip off the rock, but he found some good ones just by overturning some of the rocks down below here and just looking for the ammonites. And that's also a good technique when you're actually looking for some of these. You can't actually go and actually hit the rocks. And these are actually rocks that are siltstone. And so it's not like they come in nice layers. It's like shale, or let's say, they tend to come in blocks and they seem to break in all directions. And one thing I've actually noticed is sometimes you smell this odor of gunpowder when you break them open. And so this is a site where you actually, I recommend, if you're working on the site, to actually wear some type of eye protections, plastic goggles, and hand protections too, because I've actually been hitting some of these rocks, and actually I see small pieces actually slicing my hand. That's happened before, and so I make sure that I'm always wearing gloves. It slowed down the process when you're actually going, but it was actually better to be protected when you're looking for these. Okay, in terms of animal life, I've never seen, except birds here, just feeding this bird. At this Hale Creek site, many years ago, they actually had a black bear. And so I've never seen anything else, even Sasquatch, I've never seen here along the logging roads. Okay, next. Okay, at the Hale Creek site, we also get some bizarre types of bivalves here. And these ones are collected by Brendan. And so some of them are these sort of like, it looks almost like a freshwater clam. That's the first thing I got. Then you see something almost like a cockle. And so you get all these little bizarre types of bivalves, including, let's see, something that looks like Bukiai. And so these tend to be sort of just unusual things actually you find amongst all these ammonites that are there. Next.
Karen, what area brachiopods are there?
Oh, sorry, no brachiopods at all. They're all bivalves. I've never seen a brachiopod actually in there. I don't know if anyone has collected any brachiopods, but that's, that's the thing. So this, everyone tells, just to refresh anyone's knowledge on what a brachiopod is, these are also called lamp shells. And so, they're different from the bivalves. They tend to have the same life cycles because both of them also filter feed. But with brachiopods, they tend to be having, when you have a brachiopod and shells that has two halves, one's on top of the other, and you split them this way, you get a mirror image. Okay, with the bivalves, let's say the clams, you split them down where they're open this way here, then you get two images. Yeah. So it's sort of like the two halves of the two valves, those are the clams, and they're related to the mollusks, the clams, while the brachiopods, they're in the little own group. They filter feeder. They look clam-like, but they're not related to clams at all. And so when you split them in half this way, you get two identical halves. So both halves are mirror images. So that's one difference. And usually the top shell is bigger than the lower shell, and they usually attach to the seafloor by using stalk, something called a peduncle, and that makes the difference between the clams and also the brachiopods, because none of the clams have a peduncle. You'll see muscles being attached, but they use a different technique. They use something called abyssal threads to actually attach. So they're not using a peduncle at all. They're just using something they produce from their foot to produce and anchor themselves on the rocks too. That's the difference between the brachiopods and the bivalves. So now we're at the Bukiai site, and it's pretty much the same. It hasn't changed often. There might be a few rocks eroding, and some of the paleontologists, like Dr. Danner, he spoke to us about and mentioned that a lot of the Bukiais actually see there's not actually a layer there, which we call a Bukiai layer. Okay, they're all classified as peninsula formation. So he thinks that he mentioned to me that somehow the glacier scraped off these Bukiai somewhere far up north, and so we're talking about maybe around roughly about 10,000 years ago, and just dropped all these Bukiais everywhere in North America. So you get the 6 layers, and it looks like this whole area is like the Bukiai mother lode layer, but it's all been dropped there by the glaciers. Next. One thing I should mention, person of our society, Ken Nauman, he was actually with his nephews out collecting Bukiai, and so they were having lunch one time, and one of the nephews had mentioned, say, what's this? Ken looked at that and said, it turned out to be a marine reptile. And so this is actually him holding the Clareson Lake ichthyosaur, and ichthyosaur was identified by Dr. Betsy Nichols, so it's just a fragmentary type of thing. So you see here in the middle here, this is the vertebrae, and these are bone fragments here, bone fragments here. So it's not like looking at those bones, Dr. Nichols could actually identify what species it was. And so it just showed you just by the vertebrae that she knew that this was an ichthyosaur. And so we joke around every time they're at the Bukiai site, just look out for that marine reptile. And lately I've been there and I see some things almost looks like bone, but I'm not sure what I'm looking at. Is it bone or is it actually wood? So this is one thing that we still keep our eyes open. And there's a ruler that actually shows you how big these vertebrae are. Okay, next. This is Taylor Creek back in just last year, 2022. And so this is a site they actually saw before. And it's changed a little bit. They actually have sort of like a creek running through that site, and the traffic there, I don't know what's happening there, but it seems like a lot of off-road traffic. It seems like every year it's increasing. I've never seen so much traffic going there. It seems like every 15 minutes there's always a vehicle passing by us, and you see a group of vehicles going past that, and same vehicles coming down. And so there's some type of off-road group that actually use some of the road, and they just do journeys back and forth. And so a lot of people do stop off and ask us what we're doing here, and just kind of look awesome. And they see them and they just say, well, yeah, I collected these ones before, and they tell them, you know, you can go further ahead and actually get planned, and yeah, we know about it, like. One thing also to the left of this road is this huge terrace that actually constructed here, and also you can actually see here. So this is the main logging road. They just made this huge terrace right over there, and you actually can look. Here we have Henson. He's actually cracking open some bukiai. They found this big block of bukiais, cracking it open. There's another picture of the logging road there, and off the side there is constructed a two terrace, which is just full of fragmentary and also complete amenities there. There's a group picture of the last group of people that actually went in there. And so we notice there's a lot of tractor treads around here, so they reconstructed the entire road. Now, when I showed you the claim sign, it was actually right somewhere here. That's actually been bulldozed and actually went down the cliff somewhere on that side. So it's gone now completely. It's gone, and also the claim expired. Next, and I showed you more of the Hale Creek sign. And so that all that bush that was there, all those logs, it's been scraped clean, and it's all gone. You can actually see bits of layering in here. Most of the, and they also redid the road. So any of the material from the cliff, they actually went down here, down to the creek. I never did have a chance to actually go down and explore the creek. But there seems to be lots of material here on the side of the road. A lot of the rocks I can recognize down here. So it tends to be sort of a dark gray, almost black type of rock here. And again, as we have lots and lots of traffic, you can actually see how smooth the cliffs are here. It's all been scraped away, and also the gigantic glacier came just scraped off everything here. So it's almost like scraped almost smoothly. And so I never had a chance to actually look at these rocks here, but some of it was pretty fresh. Okay, next presentation slide. Okay, just to mention a few things that, and ending that to the presentation, 2018, I think 2019, there was this sort of, you can go online and try to decide which candidates of these fossils could be designated as a provincial fossil. And one of them was an ammonite here. And so Canadasaurus here was one of the candidates, the only candidates of ammonites that actually was in part of this provincial fossil. I cheated. I actually went to one computer and then voted for the ammonite, and then went to another computer and did it. So I actually I really wanted the ammonite to be nominated as it. And so when it turned out, the Canadasaurus, number of people that found it appealing, 11%, and came in third place next to Eosammo driftwoodia, which is one of the early salmons that you actually find fossils of in Driftwood Canyon, came around 10%. But the big candidate that actually got the most vote was the elasmosaur, which I actually showed you a picture of. And so that's the one with the long necks and four flippers. Right now, it's not officially a provincial fossil. From what I understand, they're still in the process of making it official. That's the last word. I hope I heard about that, and people are probably saying, well, why is it taking so long? There was a lot of politics. They're busy with other things that are more important on their agenda rather than some extinct, primitive, non-living reptile. And so that's one reason is why it's been so slow going. Hopefully they don't forget to actually make it official. Okay, next slide. Yeah, this is actually the original Vancouver Technological Society brochure that I designed. And so we decided actually on two Dawn Redwood, the Metasequoia leaves on both sides with Cadoxurus, which I tried to actually reproduce. I think it's pretty much, there's a lot of artistic errors I could say on this colossus, because what I did is just based it on a circular type of ammonite shell. So it actually was one of our original ammonite actually used on the brochure, and actually it lived on our brochures for a long time, but slowly it started changing to more stylized type of ammonites. And so I just want to mention that when it was used to be part of our on our brochures. Okay, next. Okay, I'd just like to say thank you very much for watching this presentation. So pictures up here of the ammonites and also some of the chambered nautical shells. And so there's also a lot of other adventures that they had there in Harrison Lake. For example, I actually saw heli logging there for the first time. And when we were at the Bukia site, we actually had an ice cream truck come and visit us. And actually to prove it wasn't an illusion, one of the people that was with us actually bought one of the popsicles from this ice cream trucks. And that was not only one time, we actually saw on 2 other times where we were there, ice cream trucks coming out of the bush. And they had the music playing. And from what I was told is there is a big scout jamboree that camped it further up road. And so they had sent their ice cream trucks to go visit these scouts and actually provide them with ice cream. So I have time for any questions, and thank you very much for all those people on Zoom who came to actually join us for this meeting. Feel free to actually send any of their questions, either talk to me verbally or send them in the queries. Did anyone have any questions today? Yeah, if you can have the lights on, please, Rob. Yes.
Sure. Yeah, thank you very much for that presentation. That was wonderful. The road going up there, were there seasonal aspects to it when they work on the road improves, and when are the better times to go up there?
The earliest you can go there is probably late March. Some of us have, from what they said, they've gone there in early March. There's still snow up there, and so that can create a problem. There's also the chance of heavy rain, which we already know we get here in the lower mainland. And so it might cause like large puddles there. And so there tend to be sort of like just a lot of water. And you also have to watch out. Sometimes the roads, there's a chance of it getting flooded. I've actually seen huge potholes there is created by other vehicles. And so you never know how deep these potholes are until you actually go over it. I think I cracked my tailpipe there, or muffler, going to Harrison, because I think I bumped it and cracked it in half one time. Yeah, and we actually were talking about some people here where people have actually damaged their tires and actually had to get their tires replaced on the road. So sometimes like sharp rocks, you can come across them on the road. My advice is actually not go too fast on these, keep it at 3 kilometers. Although I'm actually seeing people with off-road vehicles and even regular vehicles doing more than 30 kilometers. And, you know, I didn't include in this presentation, but you'll come across a lot of burnt vehicles on the side of the road. I think there's 1 or 2 when you're going up that I've noticed. And so those people, I guess you're either drunk or driving too fast and then off the edge. And so those are recommendations I can actually tell people, you know, take your time and let the other people who are just speeding around, let them go through and just take your time, just be safe. There is enough room on some of these lodge roads, you can actually move off and let them pass. I don't recommend anyone going there during the weekdays. It seems like the logging trucks are operating during the weekdays. I've never been there during the weekdays, but this is what I've heard. There are no roads where you can only just have 1 vehicle. They're all pretty wide enough for 2 logging trucks to actually pass by. So that's actually some advice I can give to you. And also watch out for bears. It is an area where you can actually see bears. And I've had black bears come to some of our fossil trips. We never had any problem other than the young curious ones we sometimes get. And they haven't learned actually how to be afraid of people. They're just basically curious. I've seen these people digging in the ground and they think, okay, maybe they might have some food. That's pretty much all about advice I can actually tell you. So I can continue until late October. And then we can get a little snow, and so we do get a little snow down here in Lower Main, but when around there in Harrison, it's quite high, and they'll get a lot of snow probably up there. I've never been there in the winter time, but I don't want to ever take a chance to actually visit the site in November.
Thanks.
Oh, just a quick question. I'm wondering if you organize field trips at all amongst society members?
Yeah, we do, and so the society members, when you come, all these field trips are for the society members. We can take some non-members in case. We usually have them sign waiver forms with all BCPA groups. So it includes also the Vancouver Island Pentecostal Society, the Vancouver Museum Society, and also the Victoria Anthropological Society. They also have the same system of signing a waiver, just in case you want to sue us in case something like, someone gets hit by a rock. With this Hale Creek, I've actually seen people being hit by rocks, and it's usually because one person is pouring above the other person. And so being hit by some of these rocks are huge. When you dislodge them, they'll be about like this big, and that's actually going to be causing some injuries. But yes, we do actually make arrangements, and so most likely probably this year we'll probably be heading there, probably Harrison, probably in late March. I'll probably do that, and so we from March to October we usually have field trips because usually those are the times we. The rest of the time it always covers something. That's why we have them in. I know the Victoria groups, they tend to have their field trips like year round. And also the Vancouver Island Pentecostal Society, they have their, they also have field trips too.
Thank you.
Okay, well, yeah, and you have.
Yeah, are these sites acceptable like in a small car or do you need an SUV or?
No, I've actually seen someone use their Honda Civic on that road, and we actually had someone the first time she had an electrical vehicle, and so we actually tell people, make sure you got half a tank of gas so you can actually get there and then get it back. One thing I've never tried is go further past the Bookie Ice site. I think I did try that. Someone had a van and went further up, and you go around this sort of loop, and you can't go any further because it's a gate there. And I don't know if we do go on turn, but they changed the site at Hale Creek, and there's a number of roads that are sort of the uphill, and say the Bookie site, you see all these roads that go out of where. I know that some of these roads they go down to the shore to Harrison Lake, and so we have gone and passed down to the lake shores, and we haven't found too much, but it's something actually that requires more exploring. And same with the Hale Creek is down to the creek. Since seeing all that material that used to be the cliff is now going down the creek, there's probably more stuff down there. I myself, I did not want to go there by myself unless I had someone with me, because I just don't know what's down there. And I don't want to come across a bear. And even if there's a cougars, I never heard of cougars there. But we do get them in the lower mainland, so there's probably a chance of actually coming across. I've never heard of anyone around the Harrison area seeing cougars. And so those are things that two things I worry about. Okay, any other questions? Anyone from online?
Yes, Terry, let me put Dan.
Okay. Okay, then.
1 second.
Hey, hi Perry, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was glad to link in with you tonight. I missed your last one. Anyways, I just wanted to ask a couple of things. I was kind of interested in the ichthyosaur find up there. That was pretty significant. And I didn't realize that. So the ichthyosaurs became extinct in the early Cretaceous or late Cretaceous, early Cretaceous. And so I was trying to get the timeline of the age of the Hale Creek material. It's Jurassic, but is it late Jurassic?
Yeah, can I answer that one?
Sure, yeah.
Hey, Dan, can you hear me?
Yep.
That was found by Ken Nauman, what was it, early 2000s or something?
Yeah, early
So
2000.
that was probably, it was actually from the Peninsula Formation of Lower Cretaceous. So they the age is probably Brazian. So they were around, were around during that part of the cretaceous, but quite rare.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If this was
Right.
the earliest Cretaceous, because they died out 90 million years ago. So it would have been quite significant to know that that was one of the last little epic times there for it. But that's pretty cool. Just want to also say, you said you found lots of belemnites there. Is that right?
Yes, there's quite a few there in the spots, not really as common as the bukiai, but if you look in some of the places and look really hard, you can come across some belemnites and also some loose ones sometimes, but those are rare. And I did remember seeing some of these belemnites, when they rolled out the rock, they leave something that looks like also a borehole. And so that's how big, and some of them would be about roughly about this big, so roughly about almost 2 to 3 centimeters in diameter. So I guess there were some big ones, but you can never tell if it was a geological survey who actually worker actually bored that hole, or you're actually looking at a belemnite. But I know some of these ones, the boreholes got narrow and narrow. So just by looking at that criteria, these were actually belemnites that have been eroded out rocks, and they just left this mold or borehole. And so there's some big ones there, but I haven't seen any ones that's fossils. Oh yeah,
You want to show Dan this one?
Dan,
That's the one I found, Dan. Rod made a peel of it, of this
Yeah.
mold.
So this one here is one that Ron had done, John.
Okay.
You found this specimen?
Yeah.
Okay, and so this is a mold of one latex mold, just to prove you it is mold here.
You can bring that closer to the camera.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
this is a 3D effect right over
The
here.
large style interview is.
Oh.
Yeah, and so that's full length belemnites, and so actually that's quite large. But
That's
I've
a
never
good
seen
one.
anyone like that large there. I usually see them quite small, and they tend to be fragmentary. And sometimes you'll get them in cross sections, so they'll be in like, you'll see them split like down there and also in this plane. So they almost look like eyes looking at you. And so they tend to be little circles, and so you get cross sections of these guys in
Yeah,
some
that's a-
places.
That's
Yeah,
a very
now
good
that-
specimen. Yeah.
That site I showed you with the belemnite conquina, that site's now gone because the graders that actually did the roads, they totally wiped it out, or it might be buried under all that dirt. I've tried looking for it, but I have to do it by walking, because I can almost like get a good idea where that might be. So it's buried under tons of rock and also dirt. So it might be still there, but I don't think it could be. It was always the best site to actually take people and show them the belemnites. Yeah.
Yep, very good.
I
Yeah.
actually found that block where that mold was made was actually quite close to the Jurassic site. It's probably one of those glacial deposits that just got washed out.
Another thing I did show in my presentation is Brendan has actually trigona clam that actually got around the Hale Creek site, but further uphill. And so when you show him that picture slide of him standing there and further up as a hill, he actually almost went up to the top there, and that's where he came across the trigona. And so I didn't include that picture in my presentation. Oh, there's one actually.
There's a mold and they actually.
This one here.
Yeah.
That's from the Hill Creek.
Yeah, this one's from Hale Creek.
Lower down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this one's a trigona clam. Everyone can actually see this one here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably the gene.
That's Hale Creek.
I think. Most likely.
And
That's,
I have examples of.
We can do like,
Canosterus, yeah. So this is a canosterus, full, it would be mature. Okay, and so,
See the living chamber.
yeah, and so that's how it would look.
This is that, yeah.
The aperture, and these would be the chamber and code. And so that's what you would likely actually get. I've actually have one of these at home, but it's in many pieces because I didn't know I had actually a canosterus in the rock. I took my sledgehammer and slammed it right on where the aperture, and it broke in several pieces, which I had to glue with a lot of epoxy, and it doesn't look as nice as this guy.
Yeah, this is pretty much the sister site to Jurassic Point. And, out there, they're very close in age. I can't
Yeah,
remember-
it's also very similar to Capoose Creek and One Tree Island, where we find, billions of bouquet, like an entire shoreline, about several acres of bouquet just cemented together. And there's several different species as well of bouquet, as well as 2 species of belemnites, the
Yeah.
Pachyteuthis and the Cylindroteuthis. So that's I think we can compare a few of those Jurassic sites back and forth. And there is a Cretaceous Jurassic boundary on the west coast of Vancouver Island that we found. And it's really interesting to see what ammonites and fossils made it through that event between the Jurassic and the Cretaceous. So it's really very similar material. In some cases, we have lots of Cadoceras and beautiful specimens that came out of that site on Vancouver Island. So,
Do you want to show Dan that Phylloceras or Parchiceras that Rod had found? So we do get very rare Phylloceras as well on the hill, Mysterious Creek Formation. So this is one, I found one as well, but that's a Phyloceratidae.
yes, that's nice.
Different identified as Parchiceras, which is basically a Phylloceras.
Yeah, I see that. That's nice. Yeah, there's some excellent Phylloceras on the west coast. It's similar age as well, and it's really nice to compare the 2 sites because you can learn a lot from that, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Even
Very nice.
show them that mold that Rod made. This is really cool, right? Like we get these hollow chunks of Harrison and all the fossils are kind of so Rod made a peel of these hollow
Mhm.
pores, and you can see all these what the ammonites would have looked like.
Okay.
Because they'll get gotten away quite easily if they're exposed.
It's nice to find a cluster of them, isn't it? Yeah,
The only thing is the difference between this site and the ones on the west coast, the rock's a lot harder and it's been metamorphosized to a degree, so it's quite hard to get them out in good shape and really hard to prep. The ones on the west coast of Vancouver Island are a little softer.
yeah, they tend not to break up as much.
Yeah.
That with that Jurassic Point, believe it or not, on Vancouver Island, there's a point called Jurassic Point. Who would know that? But anyways, we went to Jurassic Point 2 years ago. John Pham was there, I think, and we found or Jay Hawley found a cluster of those Cadoceras. Like I think there's 8 or 9 in one massive cluster as big as a softball, eh? And very exciting to find that. And,
it's quite similar. Like we get these clusters in Harrison as well.
Good. Yeah.
And they tend to occur in these random orientations, right? They're quite like a lot of broken shells. They're very similar sites in many ways. They're very similar. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Well, thanks, Perry. That was a very good presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one more thing before I leave. You mentioned the provincial fossil, and
Yes.
and you said it was political. You're absolutely 100% right. Unfortunately, our politicians don't see it as a priority to put it on into the legislature to actually make this really happen. However, there is a sitting in the legislature coming up, and I'm going to make a push again to get this onto the floor and have them bring it to the attention and make the BC provincial fossil, make it real, so we can finally. This is going over 10 years, by the way. So we really would. That's our government in action. So, anyways, I would like to ask the Vancouver Society to draft a letter up, and I'll guide you. I'll give you some tips about that, and we're going to send a whole bunch of letters in as of next week sometime to get this moving along.
Okay.
And if you don't mind me just putting that little plug in there. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone have any questions?
All right, any more questions?
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us for the Vancouver State Blackboard. And hope to see you all in February.
Are we meeting here?